Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the pretty village of Puncknowle in Dorset. Now the name's got a slightly unusual spelling, but basically it rhymes with funnel. And it's located about 5 miles east of Bridport and 12 miles-ish west of Dorchester. And we're going to be walking a roughly 6-mile circular route. We'll have a quick look at the village before heading south to explore a lookout and then east to check out the Abbotsbury Castle Iron Age Hillfort. And then we'll head north to explore a most enchanting and well hidden little derelict chapel before returning to the village. Now I'm filming at the beginning of May. It is one of those glorious spring sunny mornings, temperature's perfect, should be spot on for walking. Do come along with us. Now I've still got this sore throat, bit of long-term laryngitis, so I hope that doesn't spoil your enjoyment of the video. Well, we'll start off with a little wander through the village, beginning at the eastern end, just behind me, the old schoolhouse. And indeed, it was a school in the 19th century. It then became a library. I see there's an old sign outside, and I believe it's now the village hall. And there's the old bakery with a sign above the porch there, established 1725. And right next to the old bakery is the pub, the Crown Inn, and it's got origins to the 16th century. And apparently it was originally 4 cottages, and I expect it'll be our final destination, although I believe it does have a couple of resident ghosts. Well, this delightful church is the Church of St Mary's, and Sir Frederick Treves, in his Highways and Byways of Dorset book published in 1906, described it as, and I quote, curious and interesting, unquote. The chancel arch and west tower are from the 12th century, and the tower was actually rebuilt in 1678. The south chapel was then added in 1660, and the north aisle added in 1891. The nave and chancel were largely rebuilt at various dates in the 19th century. Now the RN on the door outside relates to a chap called Sir Robert Napier. He was the High Sheriff of Dorset and Lord of the Manor. The Napiers were originally from Scotland, and they were the Lords of the Manor here from around about 1500 to the 17th century. And just outside the church is the village cross, which dates from the 15th century. It was moved from the road junction just to the north of the church into the churchyard here some years ago. Okay, well, let's have a little exploration inside the church. A terrific font down there, and I think that originates from the 12th century. But, what a beautiful little church. And there's the pulpit on the left, and just a little bit further over there's the organ, and just above the arch through to the chancel, I don't know if you can make out what looks like some old paintings up on the wall there. And then just up on the right, looks like someone's left their helmet behind. And then that's a little chapel to the south. And then just walking through. I don't think there are any stained glass windows in the church, but beautifully light and well lit chancel. It looks like there's the 10 Commandments either side of the window there. Now right next to the church is this magnificent manor house. The original house was here in the 16th century, but the present building largely dates from the 17th century. And Sir Frederick Treves described it as, well, I quote, Hidden in a garden behind the church is one of the daintiest and most beautiful of the manor houses in the county, a marvel of ancient dignity and peace. And he goes on to say, this ancient homestead is far away from the beaten tracks, but any who follow the coast road should turn aside to see it, so as to learn what an English home was like before the days when the small house mimicked the mansion and when the flaunting villa was not. And it was once owned by a chap called Colonel Henry Shrapnel. And he was a chap who, well, in the late 18th century, he invented the shell designed to shatter with devastating effect on those around it. Now, the village name was recorded as something like Puncknowle in the Domesday Book. The Knoll bit means steep-sided hill, and it might have referred to, well, a hilltop of a man called Puma or Pommer. But there have been various versions of the name over the centuries. Well, what a quite delightful village. It's full of beautiful thatched cottages and well-presented houses. I can see why it's won a few Best Kept Village awards over the last few years. Right, we're going to head southwards now into the countryside. Initially going down a little lane, I see there was a signpost to Knacker's Hole. Whew. A little pit stop to get a breather. The first section of the walk is uphill, heading towards the Knoll. In fact, right at the bottom when we came through a little wooded section, I reckon that could get quite muddy in the winter. Not impassable, but this is probably more of a summer walk. But some terrific views already, still a bit hazy, so I think I'll wait until I get a little bit higher before I show you some of those views. Well, just a little update on the route. The footpaths now come onto a little quiet country road, and we follow that just for a little while, still going southwards. Well, this is an important part of the route. I've reached well, you can see the Knoll behind me, and at this point I'm going to start heading eastwards. But before I do, I'm just going to do a tiny little detour to the west. We've got some exploring to do. Well, our first view of the sea today. Hopefully you can see it. It's still quite hazy, but certainly I can see that sort of pebbly beach, Chesil Beach, down in front of me. A beautiful sight. Aha, now this is what I was looking for. It's the lookout on top of the Knoll. It's also called the Puncknowle Knob or the Puncknowle Nose. And there's mysteries regarding the origin of the building. It might be a coastguard or signalling station. It might have been built around the time of the Napoleonic Wars in the 19th century. Or maybe even it might have been a pleasure house or a gazebo for the lord of the manor. No one's 100% sure. Does look fairly modern though. I mean, looking at the chimney and the roof, maybe the last 150 years or so. Say, I'm no expert, of course. Oh, we'll have a little exploration and look inside. It's it's not very big. In fact, it's tiny. Little fireplace there. So it's built of stone with, it's like a slate roof. I'll tell you one thing's for sure, you're certainly going to get some terrific views from up here on a clear day, of course. So there's the sea and Chesil Beach, and this is looking over to the west. I say there was a bit of a mist this morning, and it's gradually beginning to lift, so we're not getting the full impact of some of the views, but it really is your typical Dorset rolling landscape, that's for sure. He says, "Ooh, I'm not going in there, Dad. I'm still recovering from going in that potato cave the other day." What do you reckon? Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this because I'm in a little shaded woodland just to the south of the lookout that's just up there in front of me, because just down here there's a quite exquisite display of bluebells and the sun just peeking through the foliage above. It's got its own little atmosphere. Beautiful. Well, we enjoyed our little exploration around that lookout. Okay, we're now back on our proper route, as it were. So we're going to be heading initially eastwards to Puncknowle Wood, and then we'll circumnavigate that and then head southeast, cross that road, B3157. And our next destination is the Abbotsbury Castle, Iron Age Hillfort, right in the far distance. As I say, all still a bit hazy, but it's gradually clearing up as the hours go by. My little update on the route. There in the far distance is the Knoll, which we've left. I just about see the top of the lookout above the trees, and we've been following this track saying eastwards, and just come across this delightful house. I think it's called, well, the place here is called Green Lees. Isn't it beautiful with the thatch? Well, another very important update on the route, in case folk might be doing this walk after watching the video. We're heading towards Tulks Hill, and you can see we're following a footpath, but this is looking back, and well, the footpath went across that field, but as you can see there's no sign of it whatsoever. So that lovely thatched house that we saw before is behind those woods. I actually sort of walked along the farm track and around the side of the field. This is Puncknowle Wood on my right, but yeah, I mean, it would have been pretty hard going to walk across that field that's got a crop in it. Well, we've just crossed the B3157 and now joined up with the Southwest Coast Path, an old friend of ours, that 630-mile long-distance path that winds itself from Minehead in Somerset all the way around to Poole in Dorset. Right, another little uphill bit. So there's a lovely cooling breeze now because it is getting quite warm, but I've got plenty of water for myself and Logan. Just a few yards away from that Southwest Coast Path is one of many old Second World War pillboxes that are set up high on the ridge here. And the view from up here, oh, it's amazing. Again, this is looking down onto Chesil Beach. Well, I've just crossed the B3157 again, and my next destination in front of me is the Abbotsbury Castle Iron Age Hillfort, and hopefully that's our last uphill bit for a while. Well, we've made it to the top of the Abbotsbury Castle Iron Age Hillfort. You can probably just see the top of the trig point up there. We have been here before and we have bagged it, so we won't do that again. But it's a fantastic fort to explore. The actual Hillfort itself covers about 10 acres. I think it's about 4.5 acres inside. Originally, there was just one rampart in the early Iron Age, but it was upgraded to 2 ramparts and a ditch in the late Iron Age. And it was occupied by the Treves tribe until about 43 AD when the Romans invaded, and it was abandoned shortly after that. Well, I've now left Abbotsbury Castle Hillfort. You can see it on my right, and now I'm going to head northwards, and the good news, it's downhill for a fair old way. Well, I've been making my way northwards, downhill, following this track that eventually is going to take us back to Puncknowle. But I'm going to make a little detour, a little footpath here that's going to take us into some woods to look for something, well, quite interesting. Now, the woods are called Chapel Coppice, and that's going to give us a clue as to what we're looking for. Oh, wow. It really is quite exquisite in here. Obviously there's bluebells everywhere, quite a few ferns. It's got its own little micro environment here. Logan's leading the way, and let's just see where this little track takes us to. It really is quite peaceful. And that little brook down in the little mini valley on the left. Oh wow, and this is what I was looking for, and it's not been straightforward to get to. Quite a windy path up and down dale, as it were, but oh. Well, this, folks, is St Luke's Chapel, and as I said earlier, it's in a coppice. It's part of the Ashley Chase estate. It's actually on a public footpath. Oh my goodness. Let's go for a little exploration. Well, there's not much of it left, as you can see. a cross on top of some stones there. Well, let me tell you a little bit about its history. There was a Cistercian abbey at Netley at Southampton, and it had a grange or farm on the site here back in 1245, and it was worked by monks and lay brothers for both the abbey and the nearby medieval village that was called Sturt. And basically land had been given to them by William de Liddington in exchange for the monks saying prayers for him. Quite a good deal, really. And a chapel was built for them above a very small stream which we've just passed, and it did have a large pond, possibly a fish pond, but that's now silted up to just a bog. But with the abbey empty after the dissolution of monasteries, the community here was abandoned, as well as the medieval village, and the wood basically grew up around the chapel, which basically became ruined. Now, when the land around here was bought by a chap called Sir David Milne-Watson and his wife Olga in 1925, they arranged for a modest restoration, but the workmen, in ignorance, made the window in the west gable end into a doorway and had the stone altar and wooden cross erected at the eastern end. Anyway, when David and Olga both died, they were buried here, and there's two other graves, one of which I think is a chap called Dennis Reed, who was the couple's grandson, I think, and there's a fourth grave of Harold Farrer. I'm not sure what his connection is here. But at one time they held an Easter service here, but it's no longer consecrated. You know, I tell you, I just cannot get over how peaceful it is in here. All I can hear are the birds twittering away. I mean, the path to get here was quite magical, I say, with all the bluebells and the sort of sun poking through the sort of leaves in the trees above, and then suddenly you come across this little area of tranquility in the middle of nowhere. So moments like this, you just want to sort of sit down for 10 minutes and contemplate. Well, I think this is about as near as you're going to get to a dog dip today, fella. I mean, it is fresh water, but it's not even going to cover your paws, I don't think. I don't think he's impressed. Well, I've now left Chapel Coppice and back on the track that's heading northwards, downhill, and I think we've got a farm to look out for, and then when we hit that, at that point we start heading westwards back to Puncknowle. But along the way here, some fantastic views either side, because all the crops in the fields now beginning to come through, all those green shoots. And this is Park's Dairy House. So at this point we now take the footpath. I think it's actually a bridleway that'll take us westwards, very much on the homeward journey now back to Puncknowle. Well, folks, we've just got our feet wet. The bridleway that we've just come down actually passes through this brook, and well, there's no ford for pedestrians as far as I can see. Oh well, it's a warm day. Well, I've just passed through Look Farm, L-O-O-K-E. Not sure if that's how you pronounce it, which I believe's got origins to the 17th century. And now I'm just going to follow a road back to Puncknowle, and well, it's about 1:45 now. I think the Crown closes at 3, so no problems this week. And here we are back at our starting point, the Crown Inn at the Puncknowle, which of course we will now have to visit purely for research purposes for the video. Well folks, here we are back at the beer garden at the Crown in Puncknowle for a pint of Dorset Gold. Oh yes. And of course, as is traditional, it's Christmas time. I'm afraid it's only walkers today. Yep, I think they'll do. Well, we hope you enjoyed the walk today. We certainly saw lots of interesting things, didn't we? And the weather was perfect. If you did like the walk, please give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Another Chris, good boy. Oh, this is wonderful.